All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another edition of Spring Office Hours. I'm your host, Dan Vega. Alongside me, as always, is my good friend, DaShaun. DaShaun, how are you doing?
I'm good. We made it back. I'm feeling good, energized. Yeah, I'm excited.
We
I'm
made it
excited.
back. We made it back from CodeMash 2023. I made it back because it's 45 minutes from my house. You had a little bit longer of a drive than I
I did,
did.
and I drove. Right, like
You
uh,
drove.
the developer advocate life isn't as easy as it looks on TV.
It's not as
Uh,
glamorous.
yes, it was a long drive. It was a long drive,
So
but worth
I
it.
figured, yeah, definitely worth it. I figured we'd spend a little bit of time talking about what was CodeMash 2023 today. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll get into our normal kind of cadence of looking at the calendar today. We'll talk about a certain spring conference happening next week virtually that we're a part of. You more than a lot of people. I can't wait to talk about that. And then, yeah, we have some demos if we want to get into them. We have questions from you. As always, we're here to answer your questions. So please feel free to get those questions in and we'll see if we can get them answered.
We had a couple of new faces. We have some familiar faces. And
Oh,
first question: what is CodeMash? That is a great
great,
question.
great
Great question.
question.
Tariq.
So,
I hope I'm saying
so
that right.
CodeMash is a conference in Ohio. So it's in Sandusky, Ohio. If you're not familiar with Ohio, and I don't blame you if you are, I live about 45 minutes from there outside the greater Cleveland area. Sandusky is well known for Cedar Point, which is a huge amusement park. But there's also a Kalahari there, which is like an indoor water park. They have them across the kind of U.S. And every January, like right after the new year, there is a conference which brings together thousands of developers. And one of the reasons I really do love this conference is it's not just a Java conference or a backend or a front end. It really is a conference that encompasses all kinds of technologies, whether it's backend, front end, AI, machine learning. There's 2 days of workshops. So these workshops are 4 hours long each. Then there's 2 days of regular kind of breakout sessions. And, I think it's just really well run. And the venue is just amazing. Like the inside the water park is cool, but the convention center there is just cool. So I've been there before. DaShaun, what were your kind of thoughts as a first timer there?
I had no idea what to expect. Right, the hype is totally valid and worth it. Um, I it's a water park. It was super kid friendly. There's a kids track, kids mash, and I'll be really honest and transparent that there was some things happening in the kids track that I thought were pretty exciting and interesting myself. And
Yeah.
I was just a little bit. I can admit I was embarrassed to go and hang out with the kids that knew all
Mhm.
about robotics and 3D modeling, and they had their little digital calipers out, ready to do
Yep.
the things. I was very impressed, and I loved it. I loved the idea of having that kind of a opportunity. Uh, you know, yeah, I'm excited. Getting my kids excited, that kind of stuff. That's just a great place to start, and I'm already looking forward to next year.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because it attracts so many families because you are in like an indoor water park in Ohio in the middle of January. It's not warm, so being indoors is nice. And yeah, I think like I'm really excited for my girls to kind of grow up and be able to take them because they come out every year. You got to hang out with them for a little bit. They come every year because they want to go to the water park. But I think like once they get of age to like be able to get interested in some of that stuff, that's going to be really cool to kind of get them in on the kids mash track. So yeah, great point about that. That's always a real big hit. So something else we did there. So there's there's a lot of people there. I don't know what the final numbers were. I heard thousands. I'm guessing, looking at all the people in the lunchroom, probably was well over 2,000. I don't know the final numbers, but it is really hard to kind of meet and connect with people when you're in those big of crowds. So something else we did on Wednesday night, there is no like speaker dinner as you'll find at some conferences, but there is a nice little dinner at Danny Boys, which is a pizzeria put on by Chris Judd, who is, I believe, a Java champion. Yeah, he's a Java champion, huge in the Java community. And his company, Manifest Solutions, puts on a dinner every year, and we got to attend that too. And that was cool just to hang out with, I mean, so many smart people in the room, just talking shop and getting to know people that you might not have talked to at the conference. So how was that for you?
It was great. There was a lot of famous people there. There's a lot
Yeah.
of people that it was nice to like go and hang out and see in their element. Uh, I did a lot of yeah, just like active listening on different conversations. So it was really
Yeah.
fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
for
meeting was
me,
nice.
it was the big beards in the room too. The Guy Roses, David Neal, the Reverend geek who drew
Yep,
our avatars. You kind of mix them up from far away because they're just coming in with the big beards.
yep.
But yeah, I got to talk to Mary, who's huge in the Java community, about her kind of presentations, and yeah, just being able to like chat with people that are big in the community and you don't get a chance to all the time. I heard so many people come up to me and really say that like they enjoyed like this particular video I made. And it's like it was really cool because it was like one of those videos that's not real popular, but it was like it scratched an itch that they had that they couldn't figure out. And I was like, wow, it's reaffirmation that the things that I'm doing are working, even if like analytics don't say so, right? Like
Yeah,
it's not always about the number, it's about who you're helping out. So that was kind of cool to see as well.
yeah. I got to meet somebody that was uh, a Spring Office Hours visitor, someone
Nice.
from the audience. That was nice.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but the conference was great all the way around.
Yeah.
Great conference. I'm pretty sure they did announce their 2024 dates already,
Nice.
including their call for papers. So
Yep.
yeah, I'm ready to put that on my calendar for next year already.
Yeah, I think that's somewhere in August. The CFP will open. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that conference. And have you ever been to any of the other? So I know that conference is happening this week in Texas. There's another that conference in Wisconsin in the summer. Those also take place at a Kalahari. I've never been to that conference. Have you been to it or
I've
heard
not
anything of it? No.
honestly. You have been to 90% of the conferences that I've been to,
Yeah,
so I haven't
and
been.
vice versa.
Yeah.
You've been to more than me. So.
I don't know because yeah, you're out there.
Yep.
But this conference was good. No, I have not been to a lot of others.
Cool.
This conference, I had some key takeaways,
Cool.
things that I felt confident in sharing. Is
Cool.
that testing is going to get a lot more attention this year, at least from the audience that we saw at CodeMash. It was
Yep.
a constant topic, whether that's what the session was happening or not. Those sessions were talked about a lot. I spent a
Yep.
lot of time just hanging out in the
Yep.
lunchroom or the dining area and in the game room. And yeah, I'm definitely confident that testing is going to be a big part of at least that community for 2023.
That's
Um,
great.
there's definitely going to be a lot of AI and ML work, uh, things happening in the Spring world. I did since then. I went and I looked at the JSR 381, and I took that for a spin.
For
I've talked
those
to
of
you about
us
it.
who don't know what that is, can you, because I don't know anything
Yeah,
about that, can you kind of talk
so
about what that is?
that's uh, yeah, a specification that says, hey, we're going to do visual recognition. They call it Java VisRec. So image recognition is kind of like the baby first step. It's like the hello world of AI and ML. And
Nice.
what they've done is they've made a specification that says, hey, if we're going to do this, let's do it this way. Here's the interface that we want to do. There's an implementation that goes along with it, but it's basically to do image recognition and those types of uh, exercises without
Awesome.
anything external. A lot of the other projects are depending on like C libraries or OS specific libraries on the back
Hmm.
end. It has that ability, that capability still available in the interface, but it's a fully Java based specification, which is
Awesome.
kind of nice. So you don't have to have
Yeah.
any extra beyond its base implementation
Yeah, and I know
with
you've been at
integration.
the kind of forefront in my ear telling me like watch out. A lot of the stuff that has been done in other languages is really going to start to move over to Java, as even as of last year, but you said more this year, you're going to start to see a lot of that.
Yeah, and I was not aware of this spec until after the conference. I was like, let me go take a peek,
Yeah.
and yeah, and just taking it for a spin. So, for everybody, I have this little project where I set up a Raspberry Pi. It takes pictures. I have a whole set of training data on my kids' rooms. So my
Nice.
kids put together this Raspberry Pi device that has a camera on it, and I can train it. Hey, this is what a clean room looks like, and this is what a messy room looks like. And I can take that same exact training set, and I plugged it into the JSR 3D1 reference implementation. It's called Deep Nets is the one that they use. And I plugged it in and it worked. And then I was like, maybe is it faster? And yes, it was. So I need to publish that into a blog that it is actually faster running on my Spring implementation.
Nice. Now you could probably build in something with like your watch or that A word and just go, are the kids' room clean?
Yeah. So what
really
the
cool.
whole point of that is that the kids' rooms, they all have their own VLAN in the house. And if or by default, their internet is off. Their VLAN is not connected to the outside world. If the room is clean, then their VLAN has access to the rest of the world.
Nice.
So that's the implementation. Of course, that'll be a fun project here pretty soon.
I like it. Our friend Whitney's here. Hi, Whitney. Whitney was at CodeMash with us. Unfortunately, did not get to see Whitney's talk. We ended up leaving because they were telling me snow was coming, and it did not really. It got here in the Cleveland area around 3 o'clock as we got home, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I ran into a little bit for like 10 minutes on the way.
Yep. Any other takeaways that you had kind of from the conference?
Yeah, one of the most popular talks, again, in my little circles was definitely the Spring for GraphQL talk. I heard lots of good conversations around what you did. You had a packed room. And after that, it was all the buzz. Lots of people are excited to take that first spin and making plans for 2023 with
that's
Spring
great to hear.
GraphQL.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I had it was funny. I had Craig Walls sitting right up front, and so obviously Craig has written books on Spring, and he's been doing some talks on GraphQL, kind of some workshops on GraphQL. So he was kind of plugged into that as well. And he was, we were saying afterwards, like I just got so many like great questions. So when you're getting good questions from the audience, they're plugged in, they're interested in what you're saying, they're like responding to what you're saying, because all the questions I got were really good. And I would say, again, a lot of the questions I get in these GraphQL talks have to do with specifically data. And so I make a point to say, like, hey, when you're building out your APIs, whether it's REST or GraphQL, kind of independent of your data, right? They're not tied to that. So I'm actually giving this talk at the Cleveland Java user group tonight. So after we are done here, I get to go do that. So I love talking about GraphQL. I'm excited about that.
So Please Think says, can you elaborate on particular items on GraphQL that generated buzz? I'm a noob. And I'll tell you what I heard sitting and listening to conversations. Basically, the way that you can expose data to any clients or other consumers inside your organization. And that's been a pain point. The bigger the organization, the more relationships you have, client and server or client and provider, the more complicated it gets. And this simplifies things greatly.
Yep. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing for me was I kind of start this talk off with, the main question everybody comes in this talk with is, should we move all of our APIs over to GraphQL? And of course, the answer is no. I mean, you need to understand when it's a good fit. Like everything, there's trade-offs. It's not a one-stop fit-all type of solution. But in certain scenarios where you are running into problems with all these different clients trying to access data, it's a great solution. So I think really just understanding the why, what GraphQL is, and how easy Spring for GraphQL is to kind of integrate into your Spring projects. So
yeah, and then there's two more takeaways, and then I'll drop the CodeMash. A lot of people had no idea about Spring Cloud Gateway. I heard multiple different conversations where people were on this gateway journey, looking for some vendor to provide this API gateway for them. And when I asked, hey, have you heard about Spring Cloud Gateway? They were unaware, which is really surprising because it's one of those components that I tend to put in first on all my things. And because now we have Spring Boot 3, I do make it native and I do have it running on Raspberry Pis, which I'll jump into here. Hey, Jack, I'm pretty sure we've seen Jack on the show before. I'm struggling to compile my native image for my Raspberry Pi. Do I have to build the image on a Pi to run it on a Pi? Yes and no. You have to build it today the easy way. You don't have to. There's emulation that you can do, but it just takes a really long time. But today, the easy way is if you've got access to an M1 or some other ARM64 device, you can still use the build pack to generate that image. And there is a custom one right now upstream. It's high priority. And I actually had a conversation, email thread about that today, where the ARM64 build pack is going to be supported upstream by the team over at Paketo. I am a part of that, so stay tuned. That will be there. But in the meantime, there is a builder. If you use DaShaun/builder::tiny, I just put that into the comments, where you have Paketo/builder::tiny, just replace that. Or if you have Paketo/builder::full, replace that. That one has a ARM64 builder in it, so that you can deploy it to your Raspberry Pis. And there's plenty of history and details and insight on that on my blog on DaShaun.com. So yeah, the native image stuff is definitely probably the last big takeaway. Every time we talked about it, it raised eyes and people kind of leaned into that conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Ooh, I have one here for you. I'll go ahead and throw that in chat. But yeah, I've got a blog post on getting started with Spring for GraphQL. So again, I have a task to write a GraphQL client. So if you already have a server in place, then it really depends on what you're doing on the client side, like what technology are you using. So there's a lot there to unpack, but if you have a more specific answer or a question, let me know. If not, head over to that blog post, check that out. That'll kind of get you started with the GraphQL on the Spring side of things.
Awesome.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about was Spring Workshop. You and I did a workshop, 4-hour tour of Spring. I'll show a picture when we get to kind of sharing our screen, but thanks to Whitney for snapping that picture. She got a picture of us up front there. I thought it was a great workshop. I thought, this was the first time doing a 4-hour intro to Spring for us. I almost feel like it would have been easier if it was 8 hours because we tried to cram so much into 4 hours.
Yep.
I think, my takeaway from that is, again, it was our first time. I wish we would have done a couple things different, but we tried to pack a lot into 4 hours.
Yeah.
But that was just me being selfish going, I want to try and I don't want you to leave with questions, right?
Yeah. 4 hours is not a lot of time.
No.
4 hours is not a lot of time. One of the feedbacks that I got on our workshop was that maybe the title intro to Spring or getting started with Spring was a little deceiving. They felt like they got way more than just an intro,
right?
Since we got into some of the advanced topics towards the end.
Yep.
But also good positive feedback on the workshop.
Absolutely. You take it, you learn from it, rinse, repeat.
Yes. It'll be even better next time. Yeah,
for sure. Okay. So anything else with we got a question here. Was the workshop public and online? If so, how did I miss that? And what do I do to miss things like this in the future? So no, it was not public. It was not recorded. DaShaun and I were sitting there giving this workshop going, we really should have just brought a camera and a couple mics and recorded this and shared it with everyone. But yeah, maybe we could do something with that at a later time.
Yeah.
We have the material and we have more than 4 hours of material.
Way more than 4 hours of material. But thanks for the question.
All right. I think what I'm going to do is we will call it a wrap on CodeMash for now. If you have more questions about that, please go ahead and ask them. But I think for now, I'll head over to the calendar. We'll take a look at kind of what's new in the Spring world. We'll take a second to go through the calendar, talk about a couple other things. And then again, if you have questions about anything you're working on, please feel free to ask those in the chat and we'll see if we can get to those. And if we have some time, I'll show off a demo. So this week, we had a couple things already. So Spring Security 6.1.0 milestone 1. So the first milestone of kind of the next version of Spring Security. So 6.0 came out with Spring Framework 6 and Spring Boot 3. This is kind of the next evolution of that. Some things happening with AMQP and Kafka today. On Thursday, Spring Boot 3.0.2 will come out. That is going to include what happened last week with Spring Framework 6.0.4. And I guess we weren't here last week, so you can see the list of everything that kind of happened last week. So we had a lot of changes from Micrometer to Reactor to the Spring Framework itself, Spring Web Services, and a Spring Data release. So a lot happening right now.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed on the calendar last week was this Micrometer docs generator. I was like,
Ooh.
I'm a big fan of the REST docs, and I jumped in and I said, hey, this is also, it's an incubator project, but what it's doing is generating ADOC tables for metrics and spans. And I was like, hey, this is very, very interesting. So something that's automatically going to generate these tables, it's something that's worth taking a look at. So
Nice.
Stay tuned. We might take a look at that real soon.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like anything that's generating the things for me. I like that a lot.
That's another reason to keep an eye on this calendar. You never know what's kind of being worked on.
I was fully unaware of the project until last week.
Yeah, I was unaware till right now. So pretty cool.
Any idea when Camel will be updated for Spring Boot 3? I have no idea beyond what's on the calendar. So again, that's why we like to start here with the calendar every week, is to kind of like see, hey, what's coming? If I don't see it on the calendar, I'm not really expecting anything new. Yeah, anytime soon. So yeah, they're really good about being transparent about when things are coming out. But this Camel has a lot of integrations in our ecosystem. So Camel for Spring Boot 3, maybe the Camel integrations are already available in the latest release of Spring Integration. So yeah, you might want to take a look at your different projects. Let us know which projects you're using today with Camel, and we'd be happy to take a look.
Yep.
Any updates on Java 17 for AWS in order to run Spring Boot 3? Thank you very much for that snapshot tutorial. Snapstart tutorial.
Yeah. So no, I know what you know. I actually did have somebody from AWS reach out to me though. So we are going to be working on some content together, which is exciting. I'll be able to share more of that when I have some updates on that. But no, I know that they are working on support for Java 17, but if you're on AWS, you know, the only runtime that you can use right now is Java 11, but that is using their runtime, right? So in order to run Spring Boot 3, you can create your own native image or Docker image using your own runtime and go ahead and use that.
Yeah.
So that is possible now, but you just can't create a jar and upload it to AWS's runtime using Java 17 because they don't have that support.
I do have a project where we months ago we went and we showed the difference between something that was running as a jar on AWS Lambda and something that was running as a native image spun up on AWS Lambda. Let me see if I can find a link to that. And I'll share that also.
So yeah, if anybody's not aware, he was referring to the Snapstart tutorial. AWS launched a new product at the end of the last year called AWS Snapstart, and it's really intended for Java right off the bat, and it will help. There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes, but basically what it does is it takes a snapshot of your kind of runtime of your application and basically runs from that snapshot instead of having to restart it, start up from like a cold start every time. So it improves the performance of just a normal Java application running on Java 11 really fast. So Snapstart work with Docker image also? No, but you don't need Java 17 and Spring Boot 3 for Snapstart. You can use Snapstart today. I have an example of that using Java 11, Spring Cloud Stream, and some functions written in Spring. So you can just use that. The reason you would want to use Java 17 and Spring Boot 3 is if you wanted to, say, compile down to like a native image, right? Now you've taken away the runtime, right? So now you can use just a custom runtime on AWS and use your application.
Right. And the other thing is too, right? The big benefit of SnapStart is that startup time.
Yeah.
Well, with a native image, that startup time is significantly reduced, right? So, our regular Hello World Spring Boot app, starting up with the JVM, it's going to start up in whatever uh, 0.9 seconds or 1.1 seconds. And then when we compile it to a native image, that same Hello World as a native image will start up in 0.03 seconds. But then using SnapStart for that same Hello World application, running JVM with a snapshotted SnapStart, that one we would expect on Java 17 that will have somewhere in between that 0.03 and
Right.
somewhere less than 1.0 seconds.
Yeah, I haven't done any actual comparisons yet, but like you said, it's somewhere in between. It's faster than a normal Java application, probably a little bit slower than a native application, right? Does all of the Spring auto wiring get resolved before a snapshot gets created? Yeah, I believe so. But so there are hooks that so SnapStart is going to provide you with some hooks. There are certain cases where you may want to get into these hooks, right? So one of the examples was like randomness. If you take a snapshot of something, you won't be able to like completely get a random like UUID or some kind of random number, right? So they have a way to get out of this and like hook into the runtime there. Maybe like things like connecting to like a data store, right? You don't want to be in kind of a snapshot VM for that. So there are ways to get out of this and do that. But yes, all of the things that happen in say like a Spring application, like auto wiring, dependency injection, beans, all that, that is taken care of for you in that snapshot.
So there are different places. I'm going to play this back. There are different points in time where you can take that snapshot
Yep.
in order for your SnapStart to work.
Yeah, and I gotta look if so. I remember the original blog post. I haven't had a chance to really dive into it. I've been learning more about like CRaC in Java and how that is working. I don't know if SnapStart is using CRaC underneath the hood, but
That's
it's
a
a
really good
similar
question.
approach, right?
That's a really good question. I think that is what I was to understand just recently. So I'm going to take a quick little Google, but I think that
Yeah,
SnapStart is using CRaC, CRaC under the covers.
right. Yeah, so that'd be interesting because that's again there are a whole bunch of like things happening in the Java world, right? We know with GraalVM, there's a similar project happening at Oracle alongside GraalVM, and then there's something like CRaC, which is being able to kind of take that snapshot of what's happening. So
based on my quick Googling, some of these headlines are coming back as AWS Snapstart builds momentum for the CRaC API, which is pushed out by Azul.
Cool. Yeah, Azul. Love our friends at Azul too. They're doing some awesome work over there.
Yes, indeed. I don't know what this says, but it looks, I hope it's safe.
Yeah, hopefully CRaC soon gets official support in the JDK. I believe, yeah, we'll see more support for that as the year goes on, and specifically in spring. I saw Jürgen mention that in his talk at the SpringOne tour.
Tel Aviv.
Where we was? Tel Aviv. Sorry. Yep. So, yeah, if you haven't seen that talk, go back, check that out, and kind of see all the different things that are happening in the Java community when it comes to kind of performance and runtime.
Yeah, I'm going to throw this up here. Looks like a comment, maybe a statement, maybe a question. Not sure, but I'm not jumping around it. I'm going to throw that up there.
Okay. So I was showing the calendar. I'll go back to the calendar. I'm going to talk about something else real quick. The SpringOne Essentials. This is an online event that is happening next, or an online experience that is happening next week. So either January 24th through the 26th or January 31st through February 3rd. This is virtual. This is a spring, kind of a condensed version of the SpringOne conference that was to take place in San Francisco last year. This is now online and free for everyone. So this opens it up to everyone. So if you want to, go ahead and register for free. DaShaun and I will be in San Francisco next week. we are having a little event, a little watch party at the VMware offices in San Francisco, along with some friends of ours. So we'll be watching it there, giving a presentation on where we think, where kind of Spring Boot 3 is, where Spring Framework 6 is. So we're excited about that. But I know that there is a huge keynote that we're all going to watch together live that someone is involved in. I know you did some things for the keynote.
Yes, and it's going to be fire, as the kids are saying these days. It's going to be fire. The keynote for SpringOne Essentials, you do not want to miss. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either. I'm gonna get to see it with everyone else next week on Tuesday. But I do know a little bit about the kind of schedule, and I'm excited to kind of see some of the things that are talked about and even announced next week. So
lots of really cool announcements coming next week.
Yep. So go ahead and check that out. Let's see, what do we have here?
Ian Worley says, would you recommend to use Spring Boot Authorization Server for OAuth or something else for microservices? I'll take a first stab at this.
Yeah.
I like Spring. So for me, when I'm using OAuth and I need an implementation that's in the building that I'm going to take care of, I'm definitely going to lean into Spring Boot Authorization Server.
Yeah. And with everything, it depends, right? So I have a lot of examples around using OAuth 2's resource server in Spring Security. So it just depends on your needs. If you want to take advantage of OAuth 2's resource server, you can do it in a Spring Security application today without involving an authorization server. And so this would give you the opportunity, and funny that you mentioned it, this is what my demo is that I can show a little bit later. You can go ahead and use JWTs right in your Spring Security application. And because there's no authorization server involved, you can use either symmetric or asymmetric keys for signing and verifying that token. So you can do it right in a Spring Security app. So this is really great if I have like a spa and I have a single backend and I'm not, I don't have to worry about sticky sessions across instances or anything like that. I just have one spa, one backend. This simplifies it. Now you want to move to an authorization server. If, say, you have a gateway in front of microservices and you need a single source of entry for that authorization, you can do that through the authorization server. And the authorization server makes it really easy to set up all of these different clients which can access it. It has things like being able to invalidate a token, refresh tokens, the whole 9 yards. So if that's what your needs are, absolutely take a look at Spring Authorization Server.
And your resources, the things that you're protecting, don't have to just be Spring. You can use Spring Authorization Server to protect any OAuth 2 resources. I'm going to jump on this. I hope, or Pete. I use Vaadin 23 and Spring Boot 3 doesn't work. I've been there. I went down that path. I can tell you this, that Vaadin 24 is available as a pre-release at start.vaadin.com. So you can go and choose that, and you can get really, really far. I ran into a sticky point when I was trying to use my REST template. My declarative client, not my REST template, my declarative client for the back end. I got stuck, but I was still able to build a Vaadin front end using Vaadin 24 that worked with Spring Boot 3 using their pre-release. I'm sure there's still sticky points, but I bet you they'd also really appreciate you taking it for a spin and helping them find out, helping them get it to GA faster by giving your feedback. That's what I'm going to do.
Cool. Yeah, speaking of Vaadin, you built a cool little client as part of our Spring workshop. And yeah, that was pretty cool to see. I've actually never seen it in action, and it looked pretty nifty.
Yeah. So Ian, I'm going to speak to you for a sec. I used Vaadin to build this front end. Ian is comfortable. He's super polyglot. He's done all the things. But Vaadin allows me to build a front end in Java with these kind of Spring constructs so I can kind of stay in my ecosystem for the front end, the back end, the CLI, whatever I'm trying to do. So yeah, it's now quickly making its way to the top of my favorite tools to use in the Spring ecosystem.
Nice.
I could take a look at that. Yeah, we'll do our demo. I could probably jump into that if we have time.
Okay. All right. Well, I had nothing really else to share. I guess I will share. I wanted to show that picture. So if you head over to my website and go to the latest newsletter, again, thanks to Whitney for taking a picture here. Here's our workshop. We were camped out up front
For 4 hours.
For 4 hours. Oh,
With
and
friends.
we forgot to mention all these little stickers that were here.
Oh, we got stickers. You know what? Let's do that. I have just a few left. I have a few stickers left over from the event, and yeah, and I heard from our good friends over at one of my favorite podcasts, Software Defined Talk, with our good friend Kote. What they do is they send out stickers to anybody that wants one. So
Oh,
if you would like some stickers, I will gladly pay. I will gladly pay the postage anywhere in the world. If you'd like some of our stickers, custom, this is it.
cool.
This is a one-time run. If you'd like some stickers sent to you, I want you to email me. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Can I say email? Let me see if I can. I'll set up an email address, and we'll send out some stickers. So
There you go.
I'll come back to that. I'm going to set up an email address just for us, and yeah, and we'll get a way to get some of these stickers sent out.
Cool. Appreciate that. And then here I got a picture from my GraphQL talk. That was awesome.
Standing room only in that one.
I don't know about that, but this was standing room only. Here's our little speaker dinner at Danny Boys. There's DaShaun and Nate. There's Dan in the back because he got here a few minutes late, and Chris Judd. Thanks for hosting. Let's see. We have another question. Let me pull this out and pull this up. Hi, I might have missed this. Any updates to build ARM64 native images with Spring Boot 3?
Yes,
Leave you to
there are updates. There's going to be another update coming. What's happening? They had their roadmap. When I say they, the Paketo team, awesome part of our ecosystem. They take care of our build packs, or they have a bunch of build packs that they support. They had their roadmap planning session. The ARM64 support was top of the list by far. I've been releasing kind of the de facto not supported version of that build pack that works for ARM64 and AMD64. It's a multi-architecture build. So you can take your build pack, the DaShaun, I put the link up, DaShaun /builder:tiny. If you use that build pack, you get ARM64 support for your M1, M2, ARM64 other machines in order to build Spring Boot 3 native images. So that's the route. I've got a bunch of examples and how-tos on DaShaun.com where you can go and take a look. But also, we're here at your service. You have any questions, you're stuck with anything, reach out directly. My email is DaShaun@DaShaun.com. We're here at your service. So anything that you need, if you're stuck, reach out. This particular thread is something that I've been on for well over a year, going on 2 years, I guess, and I'm happy to help. So yeah, if you've got any questions on anything related to ARM64, build packs, native images for Spring Boot 3, give me a call. I'm happy to help.
It's crazy that I get to talk to two of the people in the world that work on this in one day. DaShaun, and I'll see your friend Daniel Makusa later this evening in Cleveland. So pretty cool.
Are they going to stream that?
I don't know. I will find out. We have been trying to do that, so I will find out.
Wonderful.
I also want to mention in my newsletter, I mentioned Greg Turnquist's new Spring Boot 3 book. I got my physical copy today. Excited about this. Really great book. Nice and small and digestible. It's not this huge Bible where you got to like devote a month to. Nice, easy read. I haven't gone through the whole thing yet, but what I have gone through, I've really enjoyed. So go ahead and check that out. And I thought I'd share this picture that me and Nate really loved every time we saw it. This was the coffee shop at CodeMash at Kalahari. I don't drink coffee to wake up. I wake up to drink coffee. So I thought that was really good. Okay. I think that's really all, like I said, all I had to share. Do you want me to go through a quick demo?
Yeah,
Sean?
you jump into your demo.
Okay.
And
I will do that.
I'm going to answer this while you're getting ready. Are native images the future or just a nice alternative for certain use cases? B. The answer is B. A nice alternative for certain use cases. It's not the answer for every use case. The JVM is still amazing. Our just-in-time compilation is amazing. What we can do in the compiler is a big part of why Java is where it is today, and the JVM continues to get better. So B, the answer is B.
Great. So if you go out to github.com/Dan Vega, I have a repository for this symmetric key, and I'll just talk through it real quick. So as we were talking about before, Spring Security has kind of this OAuth 2 built-in support for a resource server, and I created a tutorial on kind of securing your REST APIs with the JWT. So I have a blog post, a video. I've done a couple videos on kind of Spring Security and JWTs. The question I kept getting asked, though, was, hey, you're using asymmetric keys. There's got to be an easier way. Can you just use a shared key for both the signing and verification of the token? And yes, you can. So as I point out down here, if you're not familiar with that, the JWT, the blog post that I've linked to in here goes into this in much more detail, but the JWT is made up of 3 parts. The third part, the signature, you can basically use a symmetric key, which is the same key that's going to sign the token and verify it, or asymmetric. So where you have one key, which is a public key that is going to, or a private key, which is going to sign it, a public key, which is going to, or verify it, or backwards there. So you have symmetric keys and asymmetric key pair. So I use the key pair here, which again can be a little bit more complicated, slower in a development process. So in this one, I wanted to show off how to use just that single key. So I go into some example how to run this application. I do want to mention a huge thank you to Daniel Garnier, who is on, who works here at VMware Tanzu. He also does some work with Spring Security. He helped me get through one of the biggest issues I had, which was the fact that the way that you're kind of encrypting or what algorithm it's using, I had to figure out how to get that to work. And I went into some details there. So I just want to walk through kind of what this application does, and hopefully this will make sense. So we have let's start with the security config. So in the security config, we have this JWT key. So this JWT key is coming from application.properties. And in application.properties, this must be at least 256 bits. This can be just a random string or as something I generated here, a 256-bit key. So once you have this in place, we're going to pass this into our security config. I am doing so the other question I get a lot when I work on these security demos is like, why are you using an in-memory user and something like HTTP basic? And it's just because if we went into every step of building this out, this would be very exhaustive and probably take a long time to do. But we are using an in-memory user. So we have an in-memory user here with a username of dvega, password. And what we're doing is we're saying, hey, anybody who hits this API auth token endpoint must have a role of user. And the way that we authenticate that user is using HTTP basic. Again, you can move to a different authentication mechanism. We've done different endpoint where you can pass like a username and password as as a JSON object. There are different ways to do this. I'm just using basic to kind of keep this tutorial a little bit light. So once we are logged in, this particular endpoint, which is here in our auth controller, will return a token. So this token is generated. This is kind of using the authentication. So we get in the authentication. We generate a token. Here we're using this specific MAC algorithm. So we're using HS512 here, and we're returning this token. Once you have that token, you can now use that token to make subsequent requests to anything in the application. So in the home controller, I have just a simple get mapping for home. And you can only call this if you pass in a token with the JWT with the in the authorization bearer header. So that's the only way that this will work. So I think this is just a good example of how to do that. I know that this may seem like a lot, but this is kind of a little bit easier than the asymmetric approach, which you have to generate like public and private key pairs for. I also have some tests in here. So if you're interested in tests, we have a way to kind of test, hey, when I hit that with the correct username and password, I should get a JWT back. If I hit it with bad user credentials, I'm not authorized. And then we have a home test where, hey, if we do pass in the correct information, I should be able to call that home endpoint and get everything back. So there's a lot in here, but the README is up to date. If you're interested in reading it, this is one of the tutorials I'm working on this week. So if you want, go ahead and check out my YouTube channel. I should have an example of that hopefully later this week. So if there's any questions on that, let me know. If not, again, just kind of stay tuned for that.
Awesome. I'm adding a couple links. Dan was talking about a book from Greg in a paragraph. In there, he listed the name of another book.
Ooh. So if you follow me on Twitter, you know that you already know this, but I'm going to talk about it because I like talking about it. But I'm reading another book by someone called David Goggins, who is a former Navy SEAL. I actually just finished that book. So the first book I read was Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Just an incredible story about someone who's kind of persevered life and has had a really rough like upbringing as a child and even into his high school years. And it's just like this motivational speaker now who's been like through I think he's the only African-American to go through SEALs training twice and pass it both times. The reason he couldn't get through the first time though is because he got injured. And so he had to drop out, and then he came back and did it again. He actually did it like 3 times. So he talks about his days of going through Navy SEALs training, which if you've heard the stories is really crazy. And just talks about, after that, just always like this mindset of like being able to push yourself farther. And it's just an incredible story. I really love it. And I just got his other book, which is his newest book. So I'm looking to dive into that one next. So yeah, David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. Awesome book.
Yeah. So one of the other things here that's, I guess it's happened in quite a few of our recent shows is we're always trying to learn. I think that of the Spring Developer Advocates over here at VMware Tanzu, I think you, audience, can look at Dan and myself as the ones that are the closest to what you're doing today. We are the newest members of the team. It hasn't been that long since we were sitting in your seat, but we are trying to learn just like you. All the new things that are coming out with Spring Boot 3, the native image stuff, all the interesting and amazing things that's coming out with Spring Firmware 6. We're still learning it too, right? We don't know all the answers, but we want to learn just like you. We're excited about this ecosystem and what it has to offer, and we're learning just like you. And sometimes that learning, it takes a little bit of help. So you kind of lean into some of the books that you're reading and find new ways to learn. I'm always trying to find new ways to learn.
Yeah.
But then also some of the people like Greg and like Thomas Vitale, they've taken some of these concepts early and they've given us like something to start from in their books. I'm a big fan of both of those books. I don't have my hard copy of Greg's book yet, but I am deep for kind of like my second round into Thomas's book.
Nice. Well, another thing, so I was reminded today, DaShaun, whenever he has a presentation, one of his first slides is how many days he's been at VMware. DaShaun, today is 365 days for me.
Whoa!
Yeah.
This is
I know.
This is amazing.
300,
Congratulations. Fireworks.
365
Like,
days.
hey, like here,
Um,
I can do one of these magical things here. We got to add something. There's a way for us to add a little thing. Give me one of these. Tanzu, here, let's add. Great.
and
360.
yeah, I think I was just thinking of that because you say like I get like how frustrating it can be to like try to learn some of this stuff because I get this is my job to learn and like go out and talk to people and tell people about, the different tools in our ecosystem. And I still am like, wow, I have a lot to learn still. And like I have goals for this year of things like I want to grow with. So if you feel I guess what I'm trying to say is if you feel at times a little bit overwhelmed, that's okay. You just have to be okay with not knowing everything. You're never going to learn everything. I think DaShaun mentioned this at one point, like learn what you need to know right now. Like you don't need to learn everything.
Yep.
Focus in on what you're working on right now and just learn that. And then move on to the next thing. So I love that banner. Thank you.
Yes. Nailed it. Congratulations, man.
Thanks.
Super
Well,
excited.
now we both are. I had to catch up to you. So.
Yeah, but this is a topic that has been kind of top of mind. One of the things I've been talking about, and actually you talked about with our good friend Josh Long on your episode of Beautiful Podcast not too long ago. There are a lot of Spring developer advocates out in the world. They might not all work for VMware Tanzu. And the question was like,
Yep.
well, what does it take? How do you be a Spring developer advocate? You can be a Spring developer advocate. Dan and I were both Spring developer advocates long before we were part of this team, reported to Tasha, our amazing leader, Tasha.
Yep.
And what does that mean? What does it take? It's doing the little things that you see us do. It's going to the conferences, or not even the conferences. It's going to the lunchroom and speaking and finding and learning and sharing from others within your organization about the tips and tricks and the things that you're learning, the things you're bumping into, and then sharing that all the way up and all the way down. It's not just about the good things. We as a community, we need to know the bad things as well. So share with us, with your team, your organization, what you're doing, how you're getting along, how are you navigating the ecosystem, how is Spring making your day-to-day better. You too can be a Spring developer advocate. And I for sure, I assume Dan is the same way. I feel like you are a part of the team. I felt like a part of the team long before I was officially a part of the team. And I want you to feel like you're a part of the team. So you can be a part of the team. You can start this way. Send an email with your postal address, your mailing address to stickers at springofficehours.io. Stickers at springofficehours.io.
That is
postal address,
real-time work you just did there.
and we are going to send you official Spring Office Hours stickers. I'm going to send some in the mail until we run out. I will send them. But if we need to make more, we will make more. But that's step one to becoming a Spring developer advocate. And then continue to join the show. We want to see you here. We want to hear what you're doing, what works, what doesn't. Take the new things, take the milestones for a spin, whether it's Vaadin or Spring Data Rest or the micrometer documentation, micrometers docs generator, taking that for a spin. Help us, help you, help your community. Be a Spring developer advocate. Even though you don't report to Tasha, you can be a Spring developer advocate.
Cool. I saw one more question here. I just want to bring this up. Apparently, you guys have 48 hours in your day with a number of things you're doing. And I promise you, we do not. DaShaun has more kids than I do, and I have 2 kids. So we are both very busy with families. I think it's really, and I used to think this about productive individuals as well. You guys just must have like unlimited time to work on things, and that's not the case. You just really have to like focus on the things that matter. And I just happen to focus on things that are kind of in public that you guys see every day. So that's all that is. If you're there, if you want to talk one day, we can talk offline about different productivity books that I'm into and different kind of thought leaders that are talking about this kind of stuff. But it's really just about focusing on what you want to focus on and kind of getting rid of all those other distractions and noise and putting out what you can get out. So.
Continuous learning, deliberate
Yep.
practice.
Yep. All right. So before we take off, I'm not sure what our plan is next Tuesday. I think we are going to be in San Francisco. So
We will be in San Francisco. I would like to do something at some point, but yeah, it's still kind of up in the air.
still up in
But
the air.
between now and then, we have some things that are happening.
Yes, we
There's
do.
going to be an episode of Code, one of our other Tanzu TV shows,
Nice.
with Mario Gray, where we're going to kind of pick up where we left off a couple weeks ago.
Awesome.
And I'm also going to be doing a show on one of my channels, or a couple of my channels, with Frank Delaporte,
Ooh,
who works for Azul, who's
nice.
also a kind of keeper of all things Pi4J. The Pi4J project is a big part of the Raspberry Pi ecosystem for Java, and we're going to build a Spring Boot starter for
Nice.
Raspberry Pis with Pi4J.
That's going to be a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
and we're
Cool.
gonna hey, so it's not just about Raspberry Pis, it's about like what does it take to build the Spring Boot starter? This
Yeah.
auto configuration, this quick start that we get out of the Spring Boot starters, and the patterns that are included within.
Nice.
So
Cool. When is that going to be?
look for that. That's supposed to be on Thursday.
Thursday. So
So,
code
yeah.
is tomorrow and
Code is
Wednesday if
tomorrow.
you're watching the replay.
And then on some other channel, follow me on Twitter. We will have an episode around creating a Spring Boot starter
Cool.
for Raspberry Pis and Pi4J.
All right. Well, looking forward to that, and looking forward to the rest of the year on Spring Office Hours. We have some big plans. Hopefully we can get that. I want to get a more of a schedule together and get that out there so people can look forward to different episodes that we're working on. But until then, we will keep telling you as we put these episodes together. So follow us on Twitter right there. Our Twitter handle's there. You can check out the Spring Office Hours over on the Tanzu Developer Center. So that page will tell you kind of what the next episode is, what our past episodes are, if you want to watch a recording for those. And as always, please get your questions to us. Your questions kind of fuel what we want to work on, what we're, the answers that we're trying to come up with, the demos that we're trying to create for you guys. Get those questions to us over on Twitter or on an episode of Office Hours, and we'll see if we can't answer those for you. So with that, we will talk to you in the next episode. Have a good one.
Thanks. See ya.